To everyone who's watching this video, I thoroughly appreciate those who are watching, especially since this is on my normal horror gaming channel. This is a horror novel. This is one of the things that was a birth of love for me. I wrote this book from 2005 through 2006. It is 157 pages. Not a terribly long book. Like it's a pretty easy read. Um, and it's been out of print for about 5 years now, and, I am re-releasing it. I've been writing a lot over the last few years and haven't published anything since I did publish this in 2009. So what I'm gonna do is re-release the book in paper, both through Ingram, so you can get it in, like, Books A Million, Barnes& and Noble, all those types of bookstores. You could probably just order it because it will be shipped through Ingram. I'm gonna do it through Amazon as well, so you'll be able to get a paper copy there. You'll be able to get a digital copy there as well, and you'll be also be able to get an audiobook, but the audiobook probably won't drop till a little bit later. I'm hoping to get the original version out in paper and digital by the end of the year and drop the audiobook sometime in early 2026. Now, I'm going to read the first 10 pages, maybe 11, depending on where the break's at. Because of the fact that the first chapter in this book is so long, I introduced a lot of characters in it. So I'm going to read the whole prologue. I'll read you the introduction to the main character and maybe one of the side characters, but we'll see. I'm currently in the process of querying. If you've never done that, is basically sending out a resume to potential agents to get represented again. I was represented from 2007 through 2011 when this book was published in 2009. Now, I am gonna release this so that way people can get a sample of it. So that way there is something that they can say, you know what, maybe I do want to read this book. Maybe I want to check it out when it's re-released. It did okay when it released. It was a smaller publisher. It wasn't one of the big five. So we did get traditionally published, but it wasn't like a major release. It wasn't in every bookstore. Some carried it, some did not. It was available through Ingham. It has a normal ISBN. You can look it up. It exists. And I'm currently trying to get my next book published that I have completed. It is a not a sequel, but takes place in the same world as the Unholy Grail. The book's called 21. Now, if it gets published, we'll see if that holds that title. But I felt like in case you wanted to read this, since one of the characters actually is in this book, um, I thought that maybe, having this available to be purchased again was important. I'm also gonna read you, the first chapter of my brand new book that I'm working on, and that will lead to later, being behind a Patreon that I am starting up, where you will be able to read the chapters for the entire book as they drop. So it'll be something that will be available. You can follow along all the way to hopefully getting it published. It might have to be indie published because of the fact that it's a completely different genre that I have been traditionally published in. Um, as a horror writer, I've published horror short stories. I've published a horror novel. I'm currently shopping another horror novel. I might have to go the like indie route on that. So we'll see. But I want you guys to be able to read this. I know I haven't been doing videos a lot lately, and I want to show you why I haven't. And we're gonna start at the prologue, aka page one. Yes, there is a prologue, and the prologue does actually matter to the novel because I won't talk about Loki, this character, for a very long time. He doesn't show back up until about midway through, so that's why there was an actual prologue in this book. Being the only child of real estate mogul Paul Smythe definitely had its perks. The exclusive and highly expensive top floor apartment looking down on the majestic Central Park, a driver to take him anywhere on the slightest whim, and more money than he could spend in 12 lifetimes. Thomas Smythe enjoyed chewing on the silver spoon that had been in his mouth since birth. Thomas watches as the tall, buxom blonde gets out of bed and heads to the bathroom. Her name is Barbara something. Just another meeting while out drinking himself into oblivion. Another night, another woman that he will not remember when the morning Thomas rolls back towards the nightstand, fumbling for the still rolled up $100 bill and the last remaining line of cocaine cut ready to be snorted. Well, if she isn't here, I guess I get the leftovers. He slides the transform bill into his nostril and breathes in the line. The room starts spinning, and Thomas can hear his heart pounding in his ears. Something's wrong. He clutches his chest and starts to cough. It feels like someone is trying to rip his chest through his rib cage for freedom, and Thomas flops back against the pillow. The balcony door swings open as the curtains fly apart in the arrival of a sudden breeze. A mysterious man walks over the bathroom door, rests his hand upon the doorknob, and then turns back towards Thomas. "We don't want to be interrupted," says the man, just above a whisper. He leaps onto the edge of the bed like a vulture waiting for his dying prey to be a ripe corpse. With the moonlight reflecting off his platinum blonde hair, the man looks like a young idol. Thomas's eyes are bulging and bloodshot as he sees what he believes to be an illusion looking back at him with cold, vengeful eyes. "Help me," he struggles to speak out. "Now, Thomas, I would be breaking many rules if I did that. I can't just simply decide who lives and dies now, can I? That would be highly irresponsible of me. I can give you whatever you want. Time is running short. The pain is more unbearable, so this is what it's like to." "Really? Whatever you say? That is indeed an intriguing proposal." He slapped himself in the forehead with his hand. "How rude of me. I'm Loki," he says as he extends his hand and slips his fingers into the right hand, clutching the chest and shakes. "Thought you would need a little assistance with that. Please help me." His face is turning purple as he pleads with the intruder for his life. "According to my records, Thomas Smythe, you've lived a horrible existence and are sentenced to eternity in hell." "Oh, that's a rough break. So that means when your last couple of palpitations subside, you won't see a white light. Nope. In about 30 seconds after you leave your body, there will be a big red light going straight down for you to jump into like a tube slide." Never understood why Lucifer took so long to claim his souls, especially since God is so punctual. But that really isn't my problem now, is it? "Anything," he says with his final breath. It feels like an invisible hand is ripping Thomas out of his body, and he's looking behind him to see his lifeless shell laying there as stiff as a piece of firewood. His corpse's eyes and mouth are still open in a never-ending pose. "Would you like me to close those for you?" Loki says as he points to Thomas's face. "I'm dead. How can you see and talk to me if I'm dead?" The panic is rampant throughout his speech. "I told you that you were going to die. The reason I can talk to you now is because I'm an angel. You're down to 25 seconds to make a deal before Lucifer sends someone for your soul. There are two things here on earth that trump all: money and influence, Thomas. The deal is a favor at my disposal in exchange for me putting your soul back in your vacant body, avoiding hell for now at least. Who knows? Maybe with a second chance at life, you can live more piously and turn things around," replies Loki as he lies to him nonchalantly. "Deal," Thomas agrees without hesitation. "If you weren't a ghost, I'd suggest biting down on something, for this is going to be a tad on the painful." Loki checks his watch. 15 seconds is more than enough time. He swiftly spreads his wings and flaps down hard on the floating soul, forcing from human form it had taken back into a small, wispy ball. He grabs the levitating ball, straddles over the frozen corpse. He places the jaws as far apart as possible, and then rolls the ball in his palms of his hand like a man stretching pretzel dough. That should be thin enough. 10 seconds left to go before Reaper shows. He tips the head back with the left hand and begins to lower the soul back down into his throat like he was threading a needle. The last tip of the soul was back in Thomas's body and flicks his wrist over. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's a new world record." Thomas coughs as he leans over and vomits on the floor. He wipes his chin with the back of his shirt sleeve. "Thank you so much. I am a man of my word." Loki laughs like a crazed hyena, which sends shivers down the length of Thomas's spine. "If you were a man of your word, Thomas, you wouldn't have been on the naughty list in the first place. And I even checked it twice just to make sure. But I know you will do what I tell you regardless of your lack of scruples. I'm warning you now, do not fuck with Mr. Smythe, because I will gut you like a fish, leaving your remains for the damn Reapers to take you to hell where your slimy ass." Thomas swallows hard, which hurt from the forceful reentry of his departed soul. It was like drinking a glass of nails. "What do you need from me, Loki?" "When I need your assistance, I'll tell you. Don't fret, Thomas. You'll hear from me sooner than you want to." "Do you own a golf course?" "Too. Why?" "Maybe we'll go shoot 18 holes. It will give us time to discuss how the outcome of our little business venture is going to go," he winks, and then strides over the balcony. "Oh, how careless of me. Just wiggle the door handle and the whore will be let go," he says just before flipping over the railing like a scuba diver into the ocean. A few white feathers fall onto the cold cement before the cleaning night wind sweeps them away. So that was the prologue and introduced Loki, who is kind of the not the main villain, but one of the villains in the form of this metaphysical heist book. Chapter 1. We're going to read another 5 pages of this. Dr. Salinger feels for the dial on his radio to eliminate the noise which is coming from his car speaker. "Damn it, I hate men at work. really don't care what land they are from. He turns the knob left and right till he finds a band more to his liking on 98.2 FM. He starts singing while he taps on the steering wheel and bobs his head from side to side. He flicks his tan marble cigarette butt out the window as he pulls into his personalized space. The sign standing like a centurion in front of the spot reads Dr. Jackson Salinger, head of anthropology. Jack goes in to get a cup of coffee from Colorado University cafeteria before he goes in the office just like every other morning. Although he is not his usual jovial self today, it is one year anniversary of his divorce to the woman he still loved so much it hurts. As he walks in, he throws his New York Mets baseball cap onto the hanger on the wall and slinks into his chair. After a few minutes, Jack reaches for the handle on the top drawer and opens it. He rummages around the bottom until he comes to his wedding band that he fishes out and drops on his desk. He places the ring up on his side like a quarter and flicks it, just watching the spinning metallic band till it falls over. No matter how much he knows what he did was right, he still feels something is missing every day. Jack sits there holding the golden ring between his thumb and forefinger of his left hand, just staring and remembering. Simply thinking about all the events that had gotten to the leather chair that he leans in right now. Now, I use the old 3 asterisks to represent time jump. We're gonna go back, and I did this throughout the entire first chapter where I kind of introduced characters and kinda showed how they got to where they are now. Jack was born and raised in Boulder, Colorado, where he and his fraternal twin brother, Dan, were high school football heroes. Jack was an all-state quarterback, while Dan was a hard-as-nails linebacker. Jack set state records for senior season for completions, touchdown passes, and yards, breaking his own marks from the year before. This made Jack one of the most sought after players in the country. Jack chose to turn down offers from Notre Dame, Florida State, and Michigan to attend his hometown school of Colorado. Dan was infuriated by the attention his brother had received and lack thereof for himself. Even though Dan had some records himself, he was labeled over aggressive and unstable for his continued off field problems. The hostility he showed on and off the field compared to the relaxed demeanor of Jack caused people to gravitate to Jack instead of Dan, and Dan could not seem to shake the resentment for his brother. Jack went to Colorado for his first 4 years, where he majored in sociology and anthropology, where his grades were consistently among the top of his class, and he was the type of man who was going to set the world on fire from the moment he stepped out of school. Surprisingly, he never had any ambition to play pro football, neglected to apply for the draft, and the country was flabbergasted that the best player in the game did not want to play anymore. Jack's decision had always been his own. What he yearned for was down another road. He chose to go on for more education, applied to every Ivy League school. When he received the letters back from universities, it said the same thing. We would like to congratulate you on your acceptance to wherever. He chose the illustrious Princeton for his master's, although he loved going to Princeton. He always fought back the infinite homesickness that plagued him and called to him like a siren song to return to his beloved Colorado. Jack was contemplating transferring someplace much closer to Boulder when his view of Princeton life changed drastically. He saw something that he could not take his eyes off of, Jenny Tasker. She was unlike any girl that he had ever seen before. Long strawberry blonde hair, which was pulled back in a ponytail, legs that seemed to go on forever, and a face of an angel. The aspect of Jenny's personality that Jack found so attractive was the fact that she was smarter than him, and every time Jack saw her, his heart skipped a beat. Jack could not help but fall instantly in love with her. She was 20 at the time, working on her bachelor's, and he was 23, just starting his master's work. Unlike Jack, who needed grants and scholarships, Jenny's school was paid for by her father, Richard Tasker, the editor in chief of the Washington Chronicle. While very well thought of by his peers and major force in political coverage of all the power struggles on Capitol Hill, her ambition was equaled by Jack's. Yearned to be a Pulitzer Prize winning writer at any major United States paper, and she always said to Jack, "Darling, one of these days the New York Times will be beating my door down for me to come and work for them." As the spring semester, their final years were coming to an end, Jack had one more question to ask Jenner. When they had reached the steps of their dorm, they had just saw John Carpenter's The Thing. Jack dropped to one knee and proposed. The only thing that Jack could understand was yes. Jenny spoke so fast and cried so hard she had practically uttered every word was nearly impossible to understand, except for the one thing that counted. 4 months later, they were married in her hometown of Arlington, Virginia. Soon after they married, Jenny got a job with the Massachusetts Minute, and Jack transferred to Harvard to get his doctorate. And they lived in a little two-room apartment just outside of Cambridge. Jack rode back and forth on the bus, and Jenny got the old beat-up '76 Chevette. Money was a huge problem. They were always behind on the bills, yet their love was stronger than ever. And Jack was finishing up his final year of school at a tutor of renowned archaeology professor Dr. W.H. Hamilton. Was even more impressive with his grades during these 3 years. Jack came to the conclusion of his college career, and he had an unquenched desire to learn all he could. Hamilton was just what he needed at the time, and he gave Jack the initiative to be what he wanted, a man who immersed himself in the study of the past. Like his mentor, Jack was going to be something in the field, and Hamilton went on annual summer excavations, and Jack was by his side for all 3 of those. summer semesters. WH's influence would lead Jack into the profession of psychology. It did not take long for Jack to become a huge success in the field, for he was intelligent, personable, and always the life of the party. After graduation from Harvard, they moved to Chicago, which was good for both of them. Jenny got a small weekly column, which she thought was the greatest thing in the world. When she got hired, she ran to Jack, asserting first the Post, then the Times. Jack could not help but laugh at her high pitched squeak. Jack also got a job working with Chicago's Field Museum as an excavation lead. The job was lucrative in both experience and money, but it had consequences too. He was always flying to Egypt, Italy, or wherever the museum needed his oversight. So when he was home, he relished his quality time with Jenny. The problem was she was often too busy with her column, which was quickly gaining popularity. To say that their marriage had hit a rough patch was an understatement, and they both knew it. Workaholics tend to only love one thing, and it's not each other. Jack's reputation became substantial, which caused many colleagues to come around looking for his services. Stanford and Yale were the first to call in the June of '8, soon after Harvard called to inquire if Jack would like to replace his mentor, Dr. Hamilton. Jack had 3 offers to ponder and relatively little amount of time to choose before the fall semester came. Jack had finally made his decision to take the Harvard position and was going to call them at noon. But at 11:30 a.m., Colorado rang his telephone and Jack had the opportunity he craved, for all he wanted to do was go home. Someplace he could go that was familiar and could reinvigorate him. He had everything he wanted in that teaching position. Jack loved the fact that he did not have to fly around the world at 5 minutes' notice and an invitation to return to his hometown of Boulder. The part Jack loved the most was a chance to fix the rifts between him and Jenny. They were caused by so many absences. She was having problems with her boss and was more than willing to quit the post in search of new employment. After minimal coercion, Jack got her to agree to a change. Jack was welcomed back like a long lost son, and he took that as a sign of things were looking up for the first time in years. He believed that return to Colorado would bring stability, which was severely lacking in their marriage, and for a while, things did smooth out. Jenny was able to find work within a month of their move, and Jack had the professor's position with the university. They were both working regular shifts with no crazy twist, and they began to fall back in love with each other. The romance, which had been so strong in the years before they moved to Chicago, thrived once again. Jack would stop once a week at the local florist to grab a dozen yellow roses for her as a nostalgic reference to their first date. Jack was walking a path on the way to her dorm when he realized he had not bought any flowers, so in a panic, he glanced left and right until he spotted the dean's prize winning garden. After making sure no one was around, he snapped off the best rose there, and the one that was the most beautiful of all was yellow. Jack was ecstatic because of the improvements that he and Jenny had made in their life together, but she was losing faith. Jack was an absolute optimist and always saw their marriage as improving. Jenny was a journalist through and through, and this caused her to place skepticism in everything, including her own relationship. Jenny was used to things being exciting and renewed by change every couple of years, but this time there was no change in sight. Jenny had no intention of putting down roots in Colorado, but there they were. They had been in Boulder for 18 years and it seemed too stable for her blood. She was suffocating, but Jack could not see it. And it had become a continual day that repeated over and over with no variance. Jack started to become suspicious when he started going out at night for no apparent reason in the fall of 2006. Danny would tell him a generic excuse like, I'm needed at the paper, darling, or there's an emergency. Who better to cover it than her star reporter? For Jack, it was just easier to lie to himself than to look under the surface of the glaringly obvious truth. He could not believe that Jenny would be sleeping with another man, and it hit him even harder when he found out who the home wrecker was. February 17th, 2007, Jack came home for a surprise lunch after his flight to his presentation was postponed due to a snowstorm that had closed down the runways at Boulder Municipal Airport. It was not too bad of a storm, but the weathermen were calling for more precipitation than was already frozen on the ground. There was not a flight to Los Angeles until tomorrow, so Jack just went home, surprised Jenny. But the one who was shocked was him. When Jack pulled in the driveway, he notices Dan's Ford F 150 resting out front. That seemed quite odd because Dan knew he was going to be out of town for the next 2 days. So he stealthily crept inside the house and up the stairs to their bedroom. Each step he placed his weight on made a slight creak as he proceeded upstairs, and after what seemed like he had climbed the longest staircase on earth, Jack made it to the top floor and quickly made his way down the hall to the master bedroom. Jack got to their room and found his brother and his wife having an affair in their bed. "Oh my God," was the only words that would escape his throat. Jack's face went as white as the ruffled satin sheets, and tears swelled up in the corner of his eyes. Jenny covered herself with the sheets, but Dan had the audacity to retort, "Allow me to explain." Jack turned away to make sure that Jenny could not see his anguish and left the house. The only thing Dan and Jenny heard was the door slam shut behind him. It was only 24 hours for Jack to have divorce papers drawn up by his old friend Frank Selly. He still hears the conversation playing over and over like a broken record. Do you want me to take everything, Jack? I mean, you did catch her screwing your brother. Trust me, anything you want in this settlement is yours, pal. No, let her have everything. Everything? Jack, you must be crazy. She banged your twin in your own bed, Frank screamed to urge Jack to go forward to dismantle her. Even with all the pain from that cold February night, Jack let her go practically unscathed. All the neighbors gossiped, and the locals told stories between themselves about why the Salinger marriage came to such an abrupt stop. But Jack made sure that no one really knew why. Who he had protected, he could never truly decide. But the secret remained buried like he had asked Frank. We jump back in time. I'll finish the page and then give you a little synopsis. Suddenly, the telephone jumps off the table, startling Jack so much that he falls over in his chair. His head hits the floor with a solid thud, and he quickly scampers back over to his. He picks up the picture of Jenny he had knocked off the top of his desk only seconds earlier and places it back on its normal home. While rubbing the lump on his head, he picks up the phone. Salinger here. Jack, you want to go to Saudi Arabia? This is a voice he knows well, but he had not heard in a little while. It is Dr. Hamilton, and apparently he still participates in excavations even after his retirement. Jack, you there? Hamilton says with a mumbling sound he assumes friend. Yeah, I'm here, WH. I just had a little mishap with the chair here. After Jack pulls his palm away from his scalp, you note the light crimson stain. Man, can you excuse me for a minute while I go find some rubbing alcohol? Jack drops the phone on the desk and searches through his cabinet. Being an anthropologist, uses the alcohol to sterilize anything before inspecting an artifact. Jack places the damp rag on his head and continues the conversation. Now, what's this about Saudi Arabia? Well, old chap, it's simple. I've been paid a large amount of money to lead an excavation. Any chance you have a sabbatical coming up, you could join me? Is Sean or Rat coming on this wild goose chase? Listen, you and I both know that we aren't finding anything in Saudi Arabia, except if you're looking. By the way, no, I don't have a sabbatical coming up, so that I could join. Obviously, Jack joins. The rest of their friends join. They go on the sabbatical. Obviously, it's going to be kind of a metaphysical heist horror novel. Lots of interesting characters, and then that will lead to a complete conclusion. So you don't have to be like, oh, you decide to read 21 when it comes out. I didn't read that, but we are re-releasing this. Now I'm going to read the first chapter of my new lit RPG novel, which is called The Goblin and the Djinn. The process is being written right now. We're about 23,000 words in. My guesstimate it'll probably be somewhere between 85 and 95,000 words for this book, which is the first of a series. And kind of being written about 20 years different. So the writing style is a little bit different. I think I'm a little bit better writer than I was in, 2006, but here we go. The wind sprawled through the dogwood trees, sporadically shaking them on this dark, cloudless May night in Waverton, Pennsylvania. On what should have been any other normal evening, the night felt damp, humid, and the sweat clung to his skin like invisible duct tape. A dimming flashlight flickered in Joey Slatton's hand while he walked on a spider-webbed cracked concrete sidewalk on Martyr Drive. He had a hand-me-down neon green 90s Jansport too full of books from the library that he felt like he was cosplaying as Atlas carrying a boulder on his back. His final semester of college would finish next week, and finals were bearing down on him. He could almost feel their hot breath on his neck. The only thing left to do was grab some Cool Ranch Doritos and a Monster Energy drink to pull an all-nighter with, and make one last valiant hurrah to be as ready for the foul test as he could. He decided to turn his friends down on their offer to take him out for his 22nd birthday tonight so he could do some last-minute cramming all weekend. He had been sick with pneumonia in the unusually cool March, which almost made him not get his coursework completed on time to finish the set of classes to graduate the rest of his cohort. Even now, he could still feel the remnants of the cough creeping up from his lungs occasionally. And on a sticky night like tonight, he felt like he was wearing a lead vest used during x rays on his chest. As much as the night with friends would have helped ease his overwhelming sense of dread about his future, the 3 weeks he had lost seemed insurmountable to make up. No fun tonight for Joey. Just his burry nose in the freshly borrowed books until he passed out drooling in one of them. His flashlight went out again as a car driving way over the 45-mile-per-hour speed limit zoomed past him, and the driver screamed something out the window that was only hearable as a mismatch of words as the speed he was driving. Joe was certain the glob of words were some variation of F you, but he just shrugged and knocked on the bottom of his flashlight. Once again, it spewed forth light for him to resume moving forward. There was a glowing traffic light up ahead, signifying that Martin's corner store was close for him to grab his reinforcements before locking himself in his dorm for the next 3 days. A bell jingled as he opened the glass front door, and a voice behind the counter said, "Evening, can I help you?" Joey waved back, "Nope, I'm good, Sam. Just need to get the usual, and I'm out of here." He went to the chip aisle first and grabbed 2 bags since they were on BOGO, and then a pair of monsters. You know what, he thought to himself? It's going to be a long weekend. I'm going to need a sixer. She smiled as she grabbed his items to scan them in. "Dinner of champions, I see." Joey just nodded and then tapped his phone to the card reader to pay for the item. He looked in her eyes, half smiled back, loaded all but one of the drinks into his bag, and nonchalantly waved as he left, pushing the door open with his back. There was a nagging claw in the back of his mind that something seemed off about Sam, just different. Although Joey could not put his finger on the change. Maybe she was just ready to lock up and go home after a long day. The pop top in the suddenly cool night made an unusually loud crack, and he took one long chug of the energy drink before turning right to walk the last few blocks back to his awaiting dorm. The contrast in temperature was noticeable to Joey. He was sweating balls when he went into the shop 5 minutes ago, and now he was thinking about pulling a sweatshirt out of his overloaded bag. He checked his watch, startled to see it was already past midnight, and that he still had way more work today than he wanted to admit. He gave a long, heavy sigh, turned his flashlight back on, and readjusted the slipping straps of his book bag back over his shoulders. Could have sworn it was only 10:30 when I came here to get my ship before heading home. Where did 2 hours go? I know I'm exhausted, but am I having episodes now? He looked around. It was oddly quiet for a Friday night, and he only heard the sound of owls. Where was everyone? Why was it so dark? Even at 3 a.m. in a college town, Friday night was practically Mardi Gras. But tonight there was no one to be found except for Sam, who was working at her dad's shop like she did every weekend. Joey took a few more steps towards his dorm, but still not a single sound of another human. No drunk bro dudes yelling about sports or something super alpha. No drunk girls gossiping to their friends or screaming at said bro dudes. Not even the sound of music from a party. Nothing but deafening silence. Joey felt the hairs on his neck stand up. The cold talons of anxiety were scratching at his waning nerve. Solitude was never a problem for Joey. As a matter of fact, he downright preferred the loner lifestyle. Joey's steadfast opinion was that a conversation with himself in the shower 9 times out of 10 was better than a chat with another human being. Yet this was different. Pure silence was unnerving, unnatural, especially in a place where 20 somethings were always making a ruckus on the weekend. For the all too common red and blue lights, accompanied by wailing sirens of local police cars, they tried to break up the typical out of control get togethers. Joey twirled the black curls of hair that almost reached his shoulders, a tic he has had since he was in middle school, and 10 years later it was the factory default soothing habit that reassured him during stress overload. His brother used to say that he pulled his hair so hard that he should have had a safe word. Per the usual, his brother's suggestions were juvenile and not remotely helpful. Asshat, dingleberry, and douche nozzle. He twirled and looked around, apprehensive, as if his fight or flight reflex had just gone into overdrive. He could hear a sound, but nothing that made sense, like a crashing pile of cookie sheets falling on each other in a cupboard. Clang. The metallic clinks were getting more rhythmic, like a connected pattern that were as they were coming closer to Joey. He squinted, rubbed his eyes, and was certain he was hallucinating. Psychosis brought on from this bizarre weather. Maybe that's causing my brain to misfire because no way 6 full armored knights are marching at me with their swords vertical to their right shoulders and shields protruding forward in their left hands. Emblazoned on the shield was a crest that was coming clearer into view, a flower, rose like, but greenish yellow in color, wrapped in thorny vines, held in the mouth of a large crow or raven, maybe. It was like time was frozen in place for everyone in Waverton except for the knights and himself. They stopped 5 feet in front of Joey in perfect formation, ready for battle, or to receive orders in this instance. They spread out and made a half circle around him, no way to go forward, and Joey spun on his heel to head back the way he came. He saw Sam standing behind him, looking menacing, nothing like her usual sweet eyes and smile. There was just presence of pure evil. "You're not Sam," Joey asked with a quivering voice. She punched him powerfully across the bridge of his nose with a sickening snap like the sound of a twig being stepped on, throwing Joey back the full 5 feet, crashing into one of the shields, and he bounced off onto the ground. He felt like a silver pinball that had smashed into an unforgiving bumper. He laid on the ground with his consciousness flickering in and out. His smeared vision watched Sam sauntering towards him, pulling out a mysterious vial from the pouch of her Gilmore Girls hoodie. She yanked the cork out of the neck of the teardrop-shaped bottle with her teeth and spat it on the ground. "It looks like Hawaiian Punch in the moonlight," Joey thought as he watched her reach out for his arm. She gripped his wrist firmly, rolling his hand over the palm down, and poured the entirety of the liquid over the back of his hand. It burned as it flowed over the top, like it was voraciously eating away at his skin. Much to Joey's astonishment, his hand began to turn dark green, like the color of a summer grasshopper. Joey was certain the appearance of his hand he was seeing was due to his concussion. "We finally found him," Fake Sam said with a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone else, someone otherworldly. She leaned over as Joey was blacking out and whispered in his ear, "The Viceroy has been searching for you for a long time, Your Highness." And there's the conclusion of chapter 1. It sets up the stage, what's going on with Joey's world. Well, he's going to be going somewhere else. As with most lit RPGs, I have created a unique system that will consist of how his power leveling will work, what his mission is going to be, and how Joey's role as His Highness is going to play into this parallel world that he's about to go to. Now, this is the first book of what was set up to be 5 books. I've never read a lit RPG before. I'm very excited to take you guys on this journey, and I am setting up a Patreon, which will probably be live next month, where I will start releasing chapters to the paying members that they can read this entire book as it's coming alive, all the way up to most likely self-publishing, unless I can get a new agent, hopefully, and we can get this traditionally published, which is always a very difficult process. So we'll see what happens. But I am enjoying just writing a lot again, trying to get these books out. And I want your feedback. I want your opinion. Hopefully you enjoy this. Let me know what you think of these chapters in the book in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and later, mates.